Oh, hi, now I'm recording, and now you can just share your screen,
Okay,
and you don't have to record or do anything.
okay.
It will,
Got it. And, oh goodness, it's turning into a laptop. Is it working?
Is RedCap part of the EHR system?
it is not. Yeah, so RedCap is this totally separate software. At UCSD, there is an installation of RedCap that's inside what's called a HIPAA protected environment, so you can store patients' data in a secure manner, but it's not automatically part of RedCap.
Okay. So is it the consent form for the study that I'm using? It's saying that they're putting their adherence, data in the EHR. So that must be what my PI is referring to.
Okay, then, I don't wanna take away, Ms. Demarest.
Yeah.
Ms. Demarest, I'm happy to chat separately about it and help you troubleshoot, is that okay?
Yeah.
Or you can always, email me. But yeah, it sounds like there's probably some other stuff going on that may not be as hard for you to get the data that you need.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send the slides later. I guess I told everyone to go on break and I didn't tell everyone to come back. Well, while we're kind of just hanging out for a second, so we have 2 hours together to go over library stuff. Now, I am as big of a library geek as anyone else, given that's what I am, a librarian. But I totally get you guys just got out of a 1 hour long class already. You're probably kind of mentally fatigued, and this is actually the worst time in the day to go over something like syntax and search strings and this and that. So here's what we're gonna do is we have 2 hours to go over this stuff. I'm gonna give you guys a lot of like hands-on experience playing with the databases and kind of show you there's 6 specific databases that all kind of do different things. So we have slides to cover everything. They're all gonna be on your library guide that I showed you guys last week. I see some, you two weren't here last week, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we put some slides up last week. Are you pretty familiar with using the library and getting around and how to, no? Okay,
UCSD library, but not like.
okay, good. So are you from UCSD?
No.
Okay, so do you have access to an institutional library?
Yeah, but my university is like 4.
Okay. Okay, so do you have access to the UCSD stuff yet?
No, I didn't. The thing is that I didn't come last week because I put the meeting on Friday instead of putting it on Saturday, and that's why I didn't come. It was a whole mess.
No, that's fine. I have, so if you actually, so since you're here, you should be able, because on the, since you're on campus, your VPN should
Yeah,
you should be able to access our resources.
What is the website?
Oh, it's a library, so library.ucsd.edu. And, yeah, so you need to be on the protected Wi-Fi, and do you have a single sign-on in order to, it looks like you're on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am.
Okay, good. So while you're here, you can use all of the databases and stuff that I'm showing you. With the exception of 2 that were like engineering specific databases for the computer science program. It's like PubMed is free. Everyone should have access to that. Your institution should have Embase if they do.
We have like Elsevier.
Elsevier?
Elsevier.
Okay, that's like a big vendor, and so they have lots of different things.
So that's like the.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, so I'll show you how to do some of these other things, and that's okay. Primarily, for the most part, unless you're really doing a full-on systematic review,
Yeah.
you shouldn't need to have to dig for everything. So
Yeah.
PubMed should suffice, maybe some Google Scholar.
Yeah.
My
My research in my university is like reviewing papers, so I just use Google Scholar.
Okay, good. What about you and your experience with the databases and the library and stuff?
Not at UCSD yet, but I've done some like libraries in the past.
Okay, good. So, so then I understand, I wasn't really given a whole lot of direction, they just said, come and teach an intro to lit review class. And then I looked at the slides from last year and then the year before, and they were dramatically different. And one of them was a 3-hour class on how to do systematic reviews, which is extremely, very, very deep, considering I polled everyone last class, and most people have never even done a lit review before. So I was like, what am I doing kind of scale? Do you guys have a project that you're, like, what do you need to know all of this stuff for? Basically, do you have a project that you need to use the library for? Are you going to do a poster?
Yeah.
Okay, you're all doing a poster at least. Are you presenting that poster somewhere? Like a conference or like an internal thing here at UCC?
We're doing a presentation at a conference.
Okay, do you have, does a conference need you to do like, a conference proceeding or like a paper to accompany any presentations, or are you just needing like a small pool of references for your poster?
Yeah. Some projects won't go to school eventually, but for now,
Okay, and then basically my question is, are you guys, is anyone doing a poster that's literally like on a literature review, or are you just using a lit review to help kind of build up your expertise on a topic so you can present on like a research study type thing?
yeah, for background.
Okay, good. So we don't have to get too deep because literally you don't have to find everything. This is really helpful. So what we're gonna actually do and spend time, are there, how many more people? Are we missing a bunch of people or we get started? No?
We're gonna see a couple other med students, but if they have the recording, they
Okay.
can watch it.
So, we have all the slides. To get access to the guide, we're gonna go over that. So, I gave you guys kind of a rundown of what we're doing, and we can pivot if things are feeling a little slow. I'll be watching your faces. If your eyes are glazing over, I'll know to kind of pep up my step a little bit, but I know it's in the afternoon, and honestly, now is about the time I have to chug a whole ton of coffee to stay awake and take a walk out in the sun. So, let's get into some of it, and we're gonna do a little bit of review from last week because duplication breeds familiarity. All right, so did anyone have any questions from last week's stuff? What we covered was basically how to get around the library. That's the library website. I gave you some links for being able to access all the stuff that we have, our FAQs, how to get help and support. We have like 24/7 chat reference, all the different participating libraries and librarians help out with that. So, you know, like when I was in school, I found that 2 a.m. was my most productive time to do work. But unfortunately, if you needed any help, everyone was sleeping. So we do have a 24/7 chat reference, all of that information, how to get around the library, all the online resources, the maps to the library, around the different libraries, that kind of stuff. Was all the stuff we covered last week, and it's in your slide deck, all the links, and it's on the special library miniature website that I made for you guys, okay? On campus and remote access, the main takeaway for that is if you're on campus, you want to be on the protected Wi-Fi, you need your single sign-on in order to get onto that to access the library databases. If you're off campus and your computer isn't registering IP addresses that we whitelisted with the vendors, then you'll need to authenticate yourself via the VPN, which basically is just like, you guys know. Okay. We talked a little bit about getting organized to do some of your searching, and since you just need to find a few things, you don't really have to get massively organized, but basically just have a general understanding in your head of where you're going to look for stuff, where are you gonna store all your stuff, are you gonna store it locally on your computers, you wanna put it maybe in like a Google Drive so that you can have everything, you wanna think of maybe a possible naming convention so that you can start to identify all the different files that you put in there, and it makes it a little bit easier. We talked a little bit about getting organized. Bibliographic management software, kind of like EndNote, Mendeley, Zotero. We covered a little bit of that. Did anyone look into bibliographic management software?
I have Mendeley, I use it.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Good. Which one do you use?
I just downloaded it.
Okay. Good. So you have your 2 resident experts right here on Mendeley.
I think Zotero.
Zotero is good. It was actually programmed by a librarian,
Mhm.
and I think Zotero really kind of specialized more in also with the soft sciences because there's ways to cite things like poetry and art, things like that. So I think Mendeley is maybe more focused towards the hard sciences because of what they provide formats for us as far as formatting. And then there's EndNote, which does basically the same thing, but is not free. You can get a discount though if you have your UCSD. I don't know if you guys do you get IDs as interns? Okay, so you have a UCSD ID, if you ever wanted to buy EndNote, now you get 20% off at the bookstore. But Mendeley and Zotero do it, the same thing, for free. And if you don't need to find everything, you don't really need to have to worry about getting organized in that respect. You might just need, 10, 20, maybe max 30 articles or whatever to help you with your research. So then tips on beginning research, we kind of talked about that. Again, I'll cover it in your slides. And then we went into a little bit on searching PubMed and then the Get It at UC links. While you're here, the main takeaway for that is you want to log into the library website and access PubMed that way, even though it's free. So that way you can access all of the articles that UC subscribes to. It ties in that way. So you're looking for the Get It at UC yellow and blue icon on PubMed. And there's a special back entrance through the library website for PubMed so that you can access that. And then when you pull up the article records, it'll actually link you to the things that we have tied to our catalog and the things that we subscribe to make it a little easier for you to access those items. I don't know if we covered interlibrary loan. Did we talk about that last time? If you find something the library does not subscribe to, please do not spend your own money buying it. We can get that for you. So you just actually, again, links are on the web page that I made for you, and I'll show you again how to get there. And on the library homepage, you're looking for Interlibrary Loan, or ILL. We'll get it from another lending library. All right, this is what I was talking about earlier. Important pages to bookmark. This is the library homepage with all that good stuff in there. And then this is the special guide that I made for you. So you want to save UCSD.libguides, like library guides, libguides.com/DBMI. And it actually just kind of pulls out the different things that I thought you would need for your summer internship here. And it goes over the library orientation, beginning your search, fine-tuning your search, some of the different databases, some search strategies, all of that good stuff. Let's see. And since we have a couple that weren't here last week, let's just actually pop into that. Okay, so let me swap share. And why am I confused right now? Oh, so is it not? All right, there we go. So there's the page that I put together for you guys. Again, ucsd.libguides.com/DBMI. It'll take you to our homepage, and I guess in the past, some of you might have had some research that lent its way over to a systematic review. How many many of you in this class know what a systematic review is? 3? Okay, so a systematic review is basically a literature review on steroids. Like it is like a literature review of clinical trials and other studies that they put together to identify common trends and things from the different studies. So it is unlike a literature review in that there is a specific methodology to it. So it's actually considered a research project because there is a methodology to it. There's an analysis section to it. And it's a really, really good place to begin your research studies. For the most part, systematic reviews will capture a lot of the information that's already been looked at and published on. And if you're thinking of embarking on a study, some of the things that you don't want to do is spend all this time preparing protocols and things to start on the study and realize later on that other people have already done that study. And they've already found information on the very exact topic and question that you yourself were exploring. So that's why a lot of the times as you're beginning to start on a project or you're looking at research, you want to begin with a systematic review. If there's something that's already been captured on the topic, has there been a scoping review, a systematic review, have there been any literature reviews on the topic that you're looking at? You want to get that sweet spot where there's just enough information to be able to inform your research, but not too much information now that's already dead and done and you're behind the curve as far as moving the information pegged forward, okay? So that's where really becoming familiar with the database, really understanding your question and your research comes in handy when you're starting to kind of troll through the different databases and refine your searching. That's what you're looking for, is that where are we right now on the scholarship on this topic? Am I about to embark on some research that actually needs to be done? Or is it all dead and done? And the difference between this now and what you were maybe doing in school is maybe you were trying to find stuff that was already dead and done because you were looking for articles to study. Now you might possibly be proposing new areas to research and to look at. So you want to see what's the latest that has been discussed and talked about there so that you can actually propose a study that's going to be relevant and valid for you. So systematic review, here's some good information on it. This is a really good primer if you actually get to that point on how to write one, a beginner primer on how to write a systematic review. A review decision tree, again, right now maybe some of you are just embarking on some research to find out some information, but Cornell University Library, it's got a great flow chart. It's basically like, do you have more than just yourself to work on the review? If yes, proceed down here. Do you have more than like a year, 18 months, whatever, to accomplish this review? Then if yes, proceed to the next. So they'll recommend the right kind of literature review because there's quite a lot to help you know what direction you're going to go into. It's free, it's a great resource. I definitely recommend it. This, as far as everyone in evidence synthesis and information, the Grant and Booth article from 2009, there really hasn't been anything better than this. Everyone talks about it, and in all classes where we go over evidence synthesis, systematic reviews, literature reviews, this article is referenced. So I've saved it here for you. We have it at the library, and I give you a summary, basically, of the different types of literature reviews that they go into. So you can go ahead and click on that PDF there. It'll pull up all the different literature reviews and like where you would search, what's the synthesis, why is it, what is the significant analysis to each of the different types of reviews, and use that with the Cornell decision tree to help you kind of get a good understanding of what the different kinds of reviews are. The lecture slides, as I promised, are available here. So this was from last week, and this is this week's lecture slides. I have pictures in here from database screenshots, so they wouldn't let me put the full PowerPoints, so they're PDFs, because that was the only way I could upload them. All right, so that's your first page. The library orientation, if you missed it from last week, is here. You're gonna want to definitely check out this box, information for new users. It links to the library homepage, information on the campus-wide wireless network, information about visiting the physical library, and then they ask us, is any help and support online? If you want to contact the librarian or connect with me, or actually I just realized I'm not sharing to the recording for 1 second. All right, there we go. So if you want to make an appointment with me, if you need help, with the 24/7 chat like I told you about, that's all here. So this is your help electronically visiting the library. What about our study spaces? What's the full map of the library? And then basically how to log on and get all that good stuff at the library. We got into some beginning your search last week. This is where we kind of talked about that one big giant search bar on the library homepage. It's a good place to just start learning a little bit more about your topics. You can just begin with some basic keywords. It'll pull up everything we have on that library, which would be videos, books, journal articles, relevant databases. It's kind of a lot. I normally don't suggest this for people to actually start fine-tuning their research because it's a lot. But it's also another really good place to just browse, or if you want to find an exact title, like you found something through Google Scholar that you wanted to see if you had access to, copy and paste the title into there and then see if the library has access to it that way. Here's some tips for using UC Library Search. And then when you actually are on our databases or in PubMed, this is what you're looking for, is to get it at UC, which will link you back to the resources that we have available at the library. Here's a little tip on how to set Google Scholar up for full text access. I think you can tie it to like 6 different institutions at any given time. So if you don't already know that, follow the directions to link your institution to Google Scholar. And so if you use Google Scholar to help you find stuff as well, you can actually have it recall the items from your corresponding libraries or research institutions to access what they have there. So this is how you set up your Google Scholar for that. Okay? So this week, we're actually going to be getting into the specific databases. So under the fine-tuning your search, we're moving beyond Google Scholar, we're moving beyond the library homepage, giant search bar. We're actually now starting to get into the different databases and covering, what's the big deal with these, this myriad of different databases. So I'm gonna actually, from here you can see databases you will probably search, and again, I kind of made this broad because I wasn't sure exactly what your output would be. So if you were doing a systematic review, any respectable journal would want you to search at least these 4 basic databases. You'd have to have a good reason not to have searched it. So those would be definitely places to start, especially if you need to cover everything and you're really trying to get everything on a topic. Databases you might search are also really, really important, but they actually complement your main search. So these are going to be more subject specific. So depending on what aspect of health and computer science or informatics you're looking at, maybe you might want to also add in some of these other ones that have very specific focal points. And so we're actually in a class today, we're going to cover Compendex and InSpec, which are new databases for me because I've been a health and medical research librarian for the last 10 years, and I don't get into engineering databases very much, but it's a good partner with what you guys are doing because there is some computer science information or research that you can find in these two that you might not find in Embase or PubMed. Those are your key health research pharmaceutical databases. All right, and then, just all the different things that I thought you guys might use, and again, conference and symposia papers and gray literature, other things that are maybe not clinical trials or peer reviewed yet. They might just be meeting abstracts, clinical trial registries, those kinds of things that might also be useful. Especially if you're trying to see if something like a research study that you're doing or interested in doing is already being registered as a clinical trial. You can make sure to check back in some of these other areas to see if it's already a study that's currently underway. So, and that's free, clinicaltrials.gov. All right, so let me go back to the PowerPoint.
Is there a good source for like clinical guidelines?
The clinical guidelines, you mean for like research, like Cochrane or Joanna Briggs, like
Or for like procedural guidelines, like studies that inform procedural guidelines?
I'm not sure. Well, if you go to clinicaltrials.gov, what it does is it pulls up kind of like the bare bones of the protocol. So, what are the participants' characteristics? When does the trial begin? When is it supposed to end? It doesn't exactly tell you how to run a specific type of trial. There's various methodologies, obviously, with each of the different kinds of clinical trials, but I can follow up with you
Okay.
on that. I'm sure maybe I'm blanking right now on that question, but I'll get back.
Okay.
Or just shoot me an email,
Yeah.
and that way I can follow up. Okay, so we were here, and sorry, I'm not used to working on such a tiny computer. I have like huge screens in front of me. I feel really limited right now. Okay, so the best bets for beginning, as I mentioned earlier, you're gonna wanna search these 4 big databases. So if you were going to do like Cochrane level systematic review, it'd be like, these are the databases you have to actually have searched on there. And you're like, well, we don't have access to it. Well, find someone that has access to it, have them be a part of your team, then you'll have access to it. Because you wouldn't be, your topic isn't really worth very much if you don't have at least the very basics, and it would be at least Medline or PubMed and Embase, which is basically a European PubMed. And so I would recommend that. And you definitely want to include some of these. And what they are is the difference is PubMed and Embase are going to be your health and your medical research databases. Most systematic reviews are focused on like clinical trials and health research. They are starting to branch out and do systematic reviews in other areas, which is great, but they primarily originate with health. And so at least for the health research that we would want to do, you want to make sure you're including PubMed and Embase in that. And there is, you think PubMed is not your end-all be-all. Embase is going to have a lot of different things. I think they actually index 2,000 more journals than PubMed does. So there's going to be some things that you might miss if you don't search both. Cochrane Library is a collection of databases. So it's really useful for locating other systematic reviews. You can browse the Cochrane Library for Cochrane level systematic reviews, clinical trials. So you want to look for those things there within the Cochrane Library. And then the Web of Science is an index database. So what they actually do, the focus there isn't on topic so much as they will tie together a bunch of different subjects, but it's useful for being able to track citations. So it's one of the only databases that you could really focus on searching by like an author's institution, focus on the author, and then see very well what articles that study used, and then what articles came from citing that study. So it is like a web. It's literally like a web of science. So that would be a really good database for making sure that you have covered all of the key players in the science conversations that you're having with your researcher.
Is there a journal that you recommend publishing for systematic review?
Well, it depends on your topic. So each different journal is going to have a different focus. So you email me afterwards, and maybe when you figure out what direction you wanna go into or what your topic is, we'll talk a little bit about how to find some. If you're publishing with any of your UCSD faculty or mentors, some of them actually already have regular journals that they publish too, because they have special agreements for open access with the different publishers. So they might be the first place to start before you kind of start way out in the open, the library. So they'll definitely want to be able to partner with you on that. So involve them in the process. Systematic reviews take a long time and a lot of work. They're highly respected in the field. Okay. All right. Scrolling down a little further on that page, we talked about Compendex and Inspect. These are engineering databases. I'm not going to get too far into it to just let you know that they're around. They have some specialty coverage in them. You can see some of the information about them here. Those are going to be the two databases we start with in our practice for playing around with the different databases. Okay, so are you guys ready to play around with the databases? Yeah? Let me actually walk you through the first one. So as I mentioned earlier, we're actually going to try out Compendex and Inspect. So go ahead and navigate your way to that. You could actually do that right off of the guide that I sent you, or you could go to the library website. Under databases, that's right under the bar, the search bar, you can actually access. So databases in the library homepage will get you too. It's all organized by alpha. We're going and we're going to practice Compendex first. Got it? So under fine-tuning research. Scroll down a little bit. Yep, Compendex. Okay, you're already there. Good. Okay, so Compendex stands for the Computerized Engineering Index. It's going to cover scientific literature pertaining to engineering materials. As I already mentioned, Compendex is the most comprehensive bibliographic database of scientific and technical engineering of research available, covering all engineering disciplines. All right, so we're gonna actually begin with a quick search. You can go ahead and use the models that I gave you up at the top. So cancer prediction and machine learning. And what I had done here was you only have one field to start. So I actually typed in cancer prediction at first, and then I clicked this plus sign to add a search field. You can see that the buttons drag down here, so you can force it to search only within very specific fields of the article record. And just to start out super broad, I just included cancer prediction and machine learning. So if you actually use this model, you should come across something like less than 5,000 records. And it's going to tell you we found about 5,000 records in Compendex published anywhere from 1884 to 2023. And you can see the syntax or the sentence structure of how we told the database to search. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't really want to look through 5,000 records. So I would probably use the filters on the very left. In most databases, you'll see filters. They'll appear on the left. The filters here that you might want to pay the most attention to would probably be controlled vocabulary. Anybody remember what we talked about controlled vocabulary last time? I was telling my kids, man, that class was a rough class. I didn't even laugh at my controlled vocabulary Instagram search with like your cheeseburger thing. My kids would take pictures. I'll tell the story again since we have two people who didn't hear my joke. You have a second chance to laugh at it. But they like to take their pictures of stuff. So My daughter, who's back home from college, takes a picture of a double-double at In-N-Out, and she tags it #deliciousness. Well, if I were ever to look for a picture of a cheeseburger that I would use in a poster, I would never think to look for a #deliciousness. I would probably use cheeseburger or double-double or In-N-Out, hamburger, and that's not a good example of controlled vocabulary. If you were gonna go through all of the efforts to publish an article, you would want people to find it. So that's why sometimes in articles you'll see author supplied keywords. The databases will also tag it with keywords. They're also known as subject headings. And when we get to PubMed, I'll teach you about medical subject headings, which is another way to search beyond keyword searching. Instead of guessing at the keywords that the item might appear in the database, you can search for it exactly by the tag that it's been tagged with. And then that way, it'll hit all alternate spellings, it'll hit all, variations of that word and all synonyms so that you can have a more focused, targeted, and encompassing search at the same time. So subject headings are a really good way to go about it. It's another use of like that controlled vocabulary. Okay, so that's maybe how I would search. I might limit it to date range. If you ran a search and you had 50 records, I might not limit it out too much because you don't want to give too many limiters where now you really have nothing to search for. If you have a lot like 5,000, I might limit it down to the latest, greatest, so maybe the last 3 years or something. And that should help narrow down your field of search. So what I want you to get out of this is basically pay attention to the number of records that come up from a search like this. I'd like you to know that there are limiters on the left-hand side of the screen and all of the different ways to limit out specifically if you are searching within Compendex by itself. All right. Any questions?
What does the gold, average gold screen?
I knew you were gonna ask me that. Okay, so the first set of limiters on the left,
You get all of it.
they're just different levels of open access. So all open access, it's like kind of a new thing that they're moving in towards. Don't worry about it. You basically have access to whatever you have access to through UC. So you don't have to worry about it so much being open access.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Next, inspec. I'm just going to show you, and then I'm going to let you kind of play around. Once I show you the difference between Compendex and inspec, we'll do about like 15 minutes of messing around in the database. So inspec, how to get to that? Again, same way that you got to Compendex. This one is a physics, computer science, electronics, and IT database specifically. The other one is more focused on all engineering. So both of these databases will contain conference articles and proceedings reports, standards, and some patents, in addition to scholarly articles and books. So Compendex has more of a focus on engineering topics. Inspec will have more of a computer science and electronics topic. And if you actually run the same search in inspec, you'll get 3,335 records, not 5,000. So you get slightly a little bit less, but it just, again, depends on what you're searching. And then also one last thing, you can search Compendex and inspec together because the database is the same. So when you actually get to the home page for Compendex and inspec, or either one, there's a little button here and it says databases. So if you drop that down, you can have the database search both for your keywords, and then it'll combine the search together. So only take about 15 minutes. Play around with the database. See if maybe your topic, you guys have topics that you're interested in right now. Try any of that and see if try to find some articles that are interesting to you, try to access them, save them. It's probably gonna route you to our library homepage. Sometimes we'll have access to it, sometimes we won't. So that takes some
The papers from UCSD are also in this,
yes, yes and no. So if you see a Get It at UC link,
right? That this is literally.
there you go. You can actually click on the title. And
Okay, so you're saying I had to get it, I already have this.
so yeah, so it'll give you some information on it. Some of the things like classification codes and indexes and stuff are really good keywords or other things that you can actually use to build your search terms for searching. You scroll all the way up. Again, the uncontrolled terms, controlled terms, these are the controlled terms are going to be items that that database recognizes as their controlled language. The uncontrolled terms are going to be like the author supplied keywords. So if you want to get it, you click get it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. And the best way to do it, yeah, you got it. So once you find an article, the best way to keep it, so you know, shoot, I saw this article, what database did I get it from? How do I get it again? You can save it to your computer. This is all part of our how to get organized. Save it to your computer with some sort of a naming system so you can understand what you downloaded. Or right away, you could start another Word doc and drop the citation for it under maybe like the database that you found it in, and maybe like the keywords that you use in the database. Finding it is one thing, saving it so you can access it again is another.
Can you put an author name in the search field?
Yes. You can see that you can actually search by author instead of all fields. Bring one more. Okay. For Compendex and Inspect, the cite feature is right here. So you can grab that citation and you can go ahead and download it, either add it to your bibliographic management software, or you can see about downloading the citations. So these citations here are actually meant for you to be able to upload it to some sort of software. And if you have used any of that software, you know once you drag it into there, it'll automatically generate the citation for you. Otherwise, one lazy way I go about doing it is if there is no citation feature in the database, I just copy it, I drop it into Google Scholar, And then I use the citation feature. PubMed also has it too. Is there a way for you to put it into Zotero? Yeah. So if it's like Mendeley, what you would need to do is just download the PDF. Well, I would get into UC. Okay, so we don't have it, so we would need to request it. And in order to do that, scroll down a little bit. Oh, you're not signed in. Yeah, we need to sign in. Are you on? Oh, did you download the VPN?
Yeah, I tried to log into the VPN as well, and they told me that I couldn't because I didn't have Duo set up, but I have it set up because I'm logged in to the UCSD.
So do you get like a pop ping on your phone or something like that? Because every single time I want to access it, even if I be logged in already in one area, it makes me do that. So I have to do Duo at least like 9 times when I first get to work in the morning. So every single time it'll ask for you to log in. So yeah, you need to log in, try logging through the VPN. And then are you on a protected wireless?
Yeah. How do you sign up?
How do you sign up? So act as if you were going, like you're at Starbucks and you're trying to get on the Wi-Fi. Yeah, you're on guest, so you're not gonna be able to log in. So you should sign into UCSD Protected. And that's where you log in with your credentials. And then once you log in with your credentials, it should force like a Duo setup. Did you set up Duo? Oh shit. So you almost shouldn't need it because you're here unless you already have a VPN set up on your.
No.
Okay, so you already have your UCSD email, right? And you already set up, has everyone set up their Duo?
Like we have to request the email if we need it.
Okay, but you guys can get into Inspect. When you're logged into, are you using the VPS?
Just the particular.
So if you're able to use the protected Wi-Fi, that means that you had to authenticate, right, through single sign-on? Okay, so if you had to authenticate through single sign-on with a username and a password, you saw the little, like the Duo thing that you had to know? Okay, so, yeah, you don't have to do that because you're not doing the VPN, so you're on the, so that means that unless you do that, you can't actually access any of the databases if you're on campus. So you can only access it if you're on the protected Wi-Fi. So for you, you have, you tried to access the protected Wi-Fi, right? You didn't log in?
It looks like it.
Okay, good. So you should be able to access the stuff because you're on campus. So try it again. Relog the page or close that out and then just go back to
Well, you're on campus, so you shouldn't use it.
Oh,
So-
Yeah.
But like the meeting, but it's like
Yeah, it's worth it.
Okay, so you're connected to the protected, and it won't let you sign in. How are you signing in? The same way that you would access your email?
Yeah, and then we can, it looks like access person.
You can get it now?
Yes, I got into it, at least the other pages.
Yeah, so maybe you don't use the single sign on, your server, so you need to actually be you're on the protected. So trying to access Inspect, yeah, you don't wanna be on guest, because basically guest is any Joe Schmo on the street that's here, carries it, that doesn't even make it access. Yeah, you might wanna follow the directions on the back page of the There's information about how to log in, so under other orientation, and then campus wide wireless network. There. So, yeah, you don't wanna log in guest, not protected. Your Active Directory, which you already have because you are connected.
Like I'm actually under the protected thing, so they use my active directory that they gave me.
Okay, and are you on the protected wireless? Yes. I don't know what to do. You guys can all get in. So try,
Yeah, I sent them to the protected Wi-Fi and then I just go the zip line.
So- yeah, don't bother, maybe you don't need to sign in. Just try to access the databases since you're on the protected Wi-Fi. Because obviously you have to authenticate in order to get on the protected Wi-Fi. So you're already there, try to hit candidate UC.
I go here where it says like consent, but it gives you the option to sign out.
Mhm.
And then even when I try hitting sign out, so it will sign it out. And then if I try to.
Okay, so yeah, try to. Okay, well, on the page there, you do see if there's a helpline or something like that, that you could put a call on that. We can actually, we're gonna move beyond that and then get into bases to see about accessing that. So that makes sense of that. But yeah, you need to just kind of watch for now. I don't know why I'm having a hard time. With it. On the webinar orientation, there's information there for the, if you actually go back to Campus Wide Wireless Network. Right there, and then scroll all the way down, I'm sorry, I don't know why it does that, it isn't getting notifications for email. So scroll all the way down, that's all your help, okay? So I would follow up with that, or help with that. How are the rest of you guys doing? You finding some stuff? Yeah.
I can't open Monday, like, I use Monday on my university's email. And I can't.
Oh, you don't wanna log in with business systems, you wanna log on with Active Directory.
Yeah, but I don't wanna log into the safety.
Oh.
That's the thing, and it just won't let me. And even if I use this, the whole thing, it won't.
Well, Mendeley is totally separate, so you can log in with your credentials. I log in with my Gmail account to Mendeley.
Yeah, but when I try to log in, see, like, I have the web importer. And the web importer isn't working. And when I try to log into Mendeley so that the web importer works, my email. What I'm doing.
Do you ever use a Mendeley desktop version? Because if you have access to an article and you have the desktop version, you just drag it in there. So you might wanna just download that. I think it's actually a little better than the web. It's like trying to access your online banking from your phone versus online banking on the website. You have more options and I actually don't like using I use it in a pinch if I need to grab an article quickly or reference, but building a bibliography and working in it is not my favorite way to do that on the web. So I would just download the Mendeley desktop if you're using that, and then try that. Okay. What else? Are you able to get in? You guys are still struggling. So when you log on, you're making sure to log on using Active Directory, right? Not
Yeah.
business, okay. Did that work?
No.
Because I don't have business. Okay, well, can you access Embase?
Sorry, I'm trying to get.
Yeah, go ahead. All right, that is about 15 minutes for Compendex and InSpec. Let's switch over to PubMed. That's free. Okay, so even if you have some issues getting in right now through the library databases, do you guys actually have other institutional access? You might be able to use your other universities and stuff. They probably don't have InSpec and Compendex. Okay. Well, let's get into PubMed. PubMed is free. You can spend more time there. And kind of get the gist of it. I kind of wanted to get these two out of the way because I'm not super familiar with these, so I'm like blow past them and then go on to the others. So basically, this is your engineering databases. All right. So you guys ready to move on? Any other questions on Compendex and InSpec aside from I can't get in to the library? At least you guys know where to get help, right? Okay. All right, so on the next, for the slide deck, we've got PubMed. So again, if you can, go ahead and access PubMed through the library database A to Z list, or you can access it off of the guide I sent you. And it'll get you the back doorway to the UC stuff. And if you don't have access to the UC library still, they're working on it. It'll still work, you just can't get the full text through UCSD, but there are other ways to get full text as well. Okay. So Medline, what I wanted to cover with PubMed Medline is this is a free resource provided by the National Institute of Health. Oh, there's my notes there so you guys can see me reading it. All right. So it is provided by the National Institute of Health and the National Library of Medicine, supporting the search and retrieval of biomedical and life sciences literature. So this is more in my comfort areas. This is where I spend most of my time. The database contains more than 35 million citations and abstracts of biomedical literature. So you're going to find a lot of the core research in life and health sciences here in PubMed, and like I said, Embase is going to be a nice complement to that. That's your European PubMed. It's going to have more of a focus on pharmacology. So let's actually get into some PubMed. Most of you have had experience, right, digging around in PubMed already. So what can I show you in PubMed that might be very different than what you probably already know? I think everyone's kind of coming at it with different levels of familiarity. So let's jump into it, and I will show you my favorite aspects for getting around PubMed. So here's your main search bar. PubMed has actually moved more towards natural language. It used to be a little more persnickety with how you input information here into the fields. So for now, since they changed the whole interface, they actually recommend just kind of not getting too fancy in the beginning with your search syntax and strategies, and to just kind of begin searching, and it automatically maps you to the subject headings that they have here. You can start a keyword search up here, or you can actually scroll down a little bit lower, and the MESH database stands for medical subject headings. Subject headings is that controlled language that I told you guys about. It's for those of you that are able to find articles in Compendex and Inspect, if you might have noticed indexed terms, some controlled language, those are subject headings. So count it as like if you found a blog post you really liked and there was a hashtag there, so you could see all the hashtags on the side or whatever before you enter into the blog, and you know that you want to like focus in on this specific topic. You just click on that and it'll pull up everything within that specific topic. This is really useful for things like, let's say you're looking at a topic like cold and flu or something, and you're using all the different synonyms for respiratory tract infections, or cold, or common cold, or this and that, and then all the different variations of the spellings. So if you use a controlled vocabulary heading, it'll actually give you everything under that vocabulary, or under that umbrella, so you don't have to guess at every single keyword you want to use. I'll show you a little bit more about MESH in a second, but for now, let's just start off very basic. So it was, what did we use before? What was our search string? Cancer prediction and machine learning. Okay. So here's PubMed. We got something like 10,000 results. And okay, you know what, let me turn off. There we go. All right. I think if I turn off my volume, the recording won't pick up my voice. You could just drag it down, please. Okay. It is somehow giving me, okay, so yours probably looks different from mine because mine somehow, I just pulled it off a dock and it was connected to some double monitors and I can't see the limiters and things on the left. But for the most part, let's just say you already know about the limiters. I want to actually get into this first article. So as familiar as you are with, I'm sorry, this is very confusing. Let me actually. Let's see if it looks the same. Okay, whatever. We're here, and this is our article. And this is your article record page. In PubMed, you know that anything that's hyperlinked is basically another way for you to access any of those articles. So the primary authors, you can go ahead and jump to those as well to find everything that this primary author, probably a leading scholar in this area, has written. You can actually access the citation feature. So for here, whatever way you're going to cite it or save it, choose your citation feature, and you can actually set that aside so you have a record of what you found. When we get into the record page, you can see similar articles. So these other articles are kind of like the article that you found. They might share similar keywords, similar subject headings and topics. And then down here, cited by is kind of like what we talked a little bit about finding in Web of Science and Google Scholar. So you can see everything that has come out since this article was published. All of these folks that use this article in their research moving it forward. So you could see that cited by, you'll see this similar feature also in Google Scholar and in Web of Science. Scrolling down a little further, you'll see mesh terms. So these are medical subject headings. This is that controlled language. So all of the main subject tags or topics that focuses on a specific article or whatever made it interesting, these are all of the different tags that come up. So let's say, for instance, you were looking at, like, I didn't know when I was looking at machine learning that something that might pop up might be computer neural networks. So you could pull that up and see what else actually, why this came up in search. You could save some of these subject headings as other keyword searches for finding stuff. If you click on this, you can actually see if you want to search in PubMed for other medical subject headings or other articles that were tagged this way, or you could search in Mesh. So if I actually search in Mesh, it'll tell you, and this, if we actually went back to the PubMed homepage. So right here, the Mesh database. If I click on this Mesh database, it's gonna basically take you to a page that looks like this with fields here that you can enter. So what is computer neural networks? It's going to show you the year it was introduced, so 2020. It's gonna show you all the entry terms. So basically, if you were typing in a keyword search into PubMed and you typed in any variation of these words, it would automatically map you to articles that have this as a medical subject heading. You can see that how it's indexed. So actually, this is a little bit harder to kind of comprehend. So let's look at respiratory tract infection. That's a pretty good one to get into, so you understand how Mesh works. If I were gonna do basically a study on a cold is really kind of hard to determine. Maybe that there's lots of different parts and features of having a cold. Within this respiratory tract infection, you can see common cold, you can see pharyngitis, bronchitis, and then all of the different levels of how you can take something. So you could actually go ahead, instead of searching for, I'm looking for all articles on pneumonia and, or pneumonia or pharyngitis or laryngitis or common cold or bronchitis, you could just type in respiratory tract infections Mesh, and it's gonna cover everything underneath there. So it's a really good and tight way to get that. Or specifically, let's just say you're only focused on articles tagged with common cold. You can use common cold as a Mesh as well, and it's only going to give you that specific subset of items, but a common cold is the primary topic discussed in that article. So that's really kind of how you use Mesh. It actually kind of filters in like taxonomies and indexes for where does it fit under this level of the hierarchy of information. They're actually quite useful when you're really trying to get to more targeted searches of your topic. So that is Mesh in a nutshell. If you're actually going to get to the, where is the, I kind of hate the way it's all zoomed in this way. Are you guys in, it looks like that for yours too. If you want to back out to the main screen for PubMed, okay, good. You can see on the left-hand side all of your limiters. PubMed's a little bit different in that they have a lot of different limiters that you might not see. You have to go into additional filters, and from there, you can actually add additional filters. I just took it all out because it would be too long, and I want you to be able to customize your own experience. So if you actually go back to the home screen of PubMed, again, you can see on the left-hand side, on the results field. Yeah, good. You guys are, you're there, you're finding it. So additional filters. Then you can go ahead and add in, maybe you're focused on a specific age subset of the research participants that you're focused in on. Maybe you're only looking at clinical trials or systematic reviews. You can go ahead and create those filters, and once those filters are created, they appear on the left-hand side. You can go ahead and check that box and adjust your search. Okay. So go ahead and play around with that. Since we have some with some access issues, I don't want to get too far into Embase. Embase, I'll show you some of that, works very much like PubMed, except instead of mesh, they use a thing called Entry, which is kind of nuanced and cool because it still kind of gives the idea of like words branching out. But it's their own, branded way to have their thesaurus. I didn't like PubMed when they first changed it because of the natural language, but the fact that they actually tie everything together is really, really useful, especially when you're just starting out with your searches. So, yes.
How do you implement a search term to the title or the abstract?
So where are you going for that? So you're gonna go into advanced. And you're gonna, see it's already kind of feeding me what you're looking for. So in PubMed, you actually have to you go into search for at all fields. So type in your search term there and you can limit it down to title and abstract. Mesh was like that controlled vocabulary we talked about. So a good example I used was respiratory tract infection.
Do I write it into?
Go ahead and type that in there so I can show you.
This gives you the sermon, right?
It gives you the tree structure, basically. You're on hand nutrition. I think respiratory tract infection. TRECT. So it tells you kind of, basically what it is in its definition. But I didn't tell everyone. I thought. So subheadings there. Maybe you're only specifically focused on the diagnosis or of respiratory tract infections, and you can actually limit your search to that. The entry terms there in PubMed and in PubMed is that they changed it so that it's more natural language searching. So if you typed in anything around that specific focus, it would automatically map you to the mesh subject heading, the mesh heading for respiratory tract infections. And it's really useful if you actually scroll up. I totally have a ton of copies on it. But if you scroll up, or scroll down, sorry, some more. So I want you to see lower. All right. So you can see how all of the terms there are kind of like that. So maybe, like I just did my team just published a systematic review on honey and COVID. At the time that we published it, COVID wasn't really, they didn't have a lot of articles on it yet. So we had to build other terms for mechanisms that looked like COVID. So we looked at respiratory tract infections, and I had to build a really complicated search string for any sickness that had some of the same, or the same, that presented the same as COVID, which were a lot of respiratory tract infections. So it was like rhinitis, or bronchitis, or pharyngitis, or cold and flu. So instead of doing that, you could just type in respiratory tract infections mesh. And it'll encompass everything. So you don't have to do the or, and this, and this, and this.
How do I do that? How
So
do I
if
like
you-
put mesh into
Mhm. If you really like this term, you can go and add to search builder. And that's your notation for it. So then you hit search PubMed.
If I wanna do this like by my, like from here, can I just go,
If it exists.
okay, and do.
That's how you kind of try to figure out. So maybe something that you're interested in, go ahead and use the mesh database to see if it exists. Or if you find an article that you really like, scroll down in that article record field to see if it pops up under the mesh terms in the article record field. Like for instance, take this one, anyone. And then scroll all the way down. So scroll, yeah, mesh
Mesh
terms,
terms.
they appear there. And those terms now appear. Okay.
So, and can I go like and something,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's,
Well, one thing I would do, if you're gonna start doing this, go to advanced. So it keeps a record as long as you don't navigate away from the screen, scroll down. So you can see everything that you've searched so far. So if you're actually sorting, and searching, like search number 9, respiratory tract infections, go ahead and just, whatever your and term is, search that by itself. And then you can actually go back and search 9 and 10, and it'll give you that result
to write number 9,
right there.
number 10 here.
Well, you don't have a 10 yet because you haven't searched. So enter in the search for number 10, whatever it is, respiratory tract infections and honey or COVID or, you know, McDonald's or whatever. Mm-hmm. So then you go back to advanced. And you can see this and that, so you could do number 9 and number 10. Same.
Okay.
So the cool thing about doing it that way is that you can leave a search by itself and then just add in different things to test against that one search by doing it that way.
This is, do you know if like gene names, I'm gonna try to.
Look in the mesh database or find an article that discusses that and see. Yeah, there you go. Okay. How are you doing here? Still troubleshooting?
I just sent the.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I like even the gene that I work with.
Uh-huh.
And then it's not the other search. Is it that it doesn't exist in mesh or like, should I take one of these?
It doesn't exist in mesh. So supplementary concept is basically kind of like it does, it's like it stands alone, it's its own thing. Like it doesn't branch off anywhere else. You can try and go ahead and use that, it'll also work. But it's not like it's gonna capture everything underneath it, it's its own search by itself.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you actually like that, click on it. And it'll tell you basically what that is, and so you go ahead and add that to your search folder to get the notation. It's automatically going to include that Boolean operator and when you run the search, so just clear all that stuff out, so it's not there. Oh, okay.
It's the same one.
Yeah, that's the notation for it, so that's what you'll maybe write down or save somewhere as like a possible keyword or
Yeah.
a concept.
Because like something that we struggle with since it's genes, like in papers they'll call them like the full name. Or since it's in Europe, they have a different like sigil, like abbreviation for gene.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like something we struggled with a lot, so it's mesh. So it's like
Oh.
something that we can use.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good point. That'll give me something to live demonstrate with Embase. So, because it's more of a European database, so they will have some of their terms very differently. Yeah. You're welcome. Anything else? Okay, I think we're at about 15 minutes for PubMed. Hopefully you learned something new or you got something that you can use out of that session. I'm just going to show you Embase because we are, like, I have 30 minutes left with you guys and we have 2 more databases to cover. So I want to show you Embase. We're not going to get too crazy into it because, again, I think for the most part, you have a good understanding. All databases specialize in different things. Databases have filters. Controlled language is useful. So databases like PubMed will use Mesh. Databases like Emtree, like Embase, it's called Emtree. Otherwise, other databases will use Thesaurus. So it'll give you some of the other language that they use to kind of control the search terms. Embase is very much like PubMed, but it looks a little different and it behaves differently, and I can see that I am not logged in to Embase. So just one moment, please. We had some problems with our Elsevier products last week, and we all got logged out of it for some reason. So of course, naturally, it was working fine earlier, and now it's not. So let's see. Some of the cool things about Embase is that when you start a search, it'll already tell you as you're typing it how many records is coming up with the terms that you're looking at. So unlike PubMed, it's not like a surprise of what's going to come up. 1 second. Okay, so I can't show it to you because Embase is down. But let me try really quick. Okay, let's see if I can get in this way. Okay, it's looking like it's down for me again, but at least I can show you this way, even though I can't be logged in. So just watch this way for me. If you're gonna do cancer prediction, use that as a keyword. You can search, you can see here as well, I think we did machine learning. And as I was typing it up, it gives you an auto detect. So it's actually saying, oh, machine learning, that's a keyword that we use, or subject heading. If you just run a search for just machine learning, you get 397,000 results. So for a basic search, let's just search for that all by itself. You could also add a field and type in cancer prediction as well. But I just want to go ahead and show you this. And on the homepage here, Emtree is like that mesh database from PubMed. You can also type in your keywords and see if there is a subject heading assigned to the terms that you're looking for. But for machine learning, it was already suggested to us as we were typing it in that it had a heading for it. So if we go ahead and show the results, you can see that machine learning, explode, or machine learning full phrase. Explode is basically, it's gonna, like the respiratory tract infection, that's what this means by explode. It's gonna give you everything underneath it, not just machine learning as a specific phrase. It's really small, but you can see here in quotation marks, machine learning as an exact phrase and machine learning as basically its mesh or subject heading. So in Embase, the notation for this is machine learning explode or EXP. If you were searching for this in PubMed, it would be machine learning in brackets mesh. And then it would actually essentially do the same thing. So if you were gonna do something like that, and let's just say now we have something like 414,000 results, you can take a look at the different limiters that appear on the left. Okay, then you can actually go in here and start a new search, and we were looking for cancer prediction. So you can see, okay, well, this is a whole new search, but it remembered what I was searching. So as I was showing, what's your name? Coral. As I was showing Coral earlier in the advanced search for PubMed, you could do something kind of like this in Embase, and you can see it added and in between cancer and prediction because it's assuming that I'm looking for those two specific keywords. If I wanted to force it to just use cancer prediction as a term I know I want to use, don't separate them, don't give me anything cancer and prediction, I want cancer prediction. You can run that separate search and you can see the difference in the terms. So the cool thing about this is that now you can combine your search. So you can actually now tell it to search number 1 and number 3. So you can do it this way for the history, and it should actually combine machine learning explode or machine learning exact phrase with cancer prediction exact phrase. All right, so that's what it did, and you can see that the results are getting more narrow down at the top. And so that's how you would use Embase. You could use the same thing in PubMed in the advanced search, and limit your searches that way as well. So Mtree works the same as Mesh, okay? I know, I'm feeling like I'm getting tired talking, and this is a lot, so. The next couple of databases, and I was gonna give you guys some time to search, but we're really running out of time. So, we started late too. The next things basically on there is just Web of Science. I wanted to briefly demonstrate that, but the biggest thing about Web of Science is really the citation feature. So the citations, if you find an article that you really like, go ahead and dump the title into Web of Science, which is another database, and then you can really use that. It's very sophisticated. It's an index, and it includes lots of different subject headings or lots of different topics, and it'll search across all of those topics for anything that those authors for that paper cited or referenced. And so you can make sure that you have a full saturation of the topics that you're looking at by making sure that you have a good scope of the scholarship that touched that study at some point or another. It's a really good way to make sure that you're capturing everything. And then the other thing was essentially, let's see, we got into some searches, Cochrane Library. How many of you have heard of a Cochrane level systematic review? That is like the gold standard for systematic reviews. If you wanted to begin there, I would recommend starting at Cochrane Library on your topic. See if, broadly speaking, you could find something that has anything to do with your topic and is a systematic review. Because they're so high level, there's only so many published in any given year, which is why I would browse by topic, and you can kind of see they have some limited topics that you can search from. Browse by topic within the Cochrane Library to see what they have and begin there, because if you found a relatively recent systematic review on your topic, that systematic review is already going to cover all the clinical trials that you would have found in the individual studies. They're going to go over how they're all tied together and the big picture things that they have found from putting all of those studies together to see if they could unveil some very broadly recurring theme. And it'll give you an idea of where the literature is on your topic. So Cochrane Library is a database. It's a library database. It's not one specific database in and of itself. Within Cochrane Library, you can also access the clinical trials portal, and you can see what's already been registered and all the protocols and where they are. So protocols have been submitted, study hasn't started yet, study is recruiting participants. Study has ended, but now we're analyzing the results. You can track all of that within the Cochrane Library, in the Cochrane Library Trials and the clinical trial stuff as well. Okay, so that's it. That was pretty much just kind of rushing through those last two pieces. I don't know if really honestly you're gonna really need of science, because again, it's a good database if you have to find everything on anything. Otherwise, there's some way to do that within PubMed. Of course, you only find the articles that Medline indexes. Google Scholar will also do that for you for free if you don't have access to Web of Science. You can use the cited by feature in PubMed as well. So it's kind of a nice to have. I never had it before my other institutions. We didn't have enough money, so I always just taught the Google Scholar portion of it, and you can pretty much accomplish it at that level as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I wanted to give you some time to play around with those, but we don't have time, and we're getting sleepy. So let's actually just bump up to maybe my last slide, just my parting goodbye for all of you. And as a recap on what we have learned and what is useful and what wasn't useful. So it's good as an assessment piece for me as well. Anybody wanna pipe up maybe with 3 things you learned? Anything that was new that you hadn't learned before? Or was this all just like, I already knew?
And reverse engineering mesh terms.
Okay, the mesh terms is really useful. Yeah, I was like, oh, keyword works. I don't need to find everything. The difference though is in school, we have to write a paper. Come on, like I can find 3 articles, that's it for my references, I'm good to go. So I find the first 3 articles I understand or can access, plug them in there somehow, turn in my paper and cool. Well, in the real world, where you actually have to know what you're looking for and something to substantiate your research claims, if you actually want to be on the other side of the fence to produce new research, you have to know what's out there. So one of the most embarrassing things that you could do is go through all the work to submit a grant, do everything else, then find out someone else has already done your study, and all the work that you're putting into it is not new. So that's why it's really important on the other side of the fence to actually do your due diligence and find everything that you can on the topic, learn about it, use the references to kind of fine tune where that topic is in the scholarship, okay? And then when you're usually the junior person on the team, they usually assign you the lit review. So when you're working with someone, you gotta do all the lit review stuff. So you have to do all the information fact finding because it's very time consuming, because there's a lot of reading involved, and because you're the junior member, so you get to do that. So it would behoove you to kind of learn a little bit more about how to navigate the databases and really kind of, you're not just finding the first 3 articles or 10 articles, and you're not asking the question, well, how many articles do you want me to find? Is it 10? Is it 5? You're not in school anymore. So you have to find all the articles that you need to find to get to a good saturation point of you understanding where you are with that topic. What about 2 questions that you still have? Maybe we didn't have enough time to cover today, or something that you wish that I had talked about and I didn't.
How to tell if like a paper that you found actually answers what you want to learn.
So how to read a scholarly paper.
Or like fast.
I
Like when you're
thought,
fast tracking
yeah.
the literature review.
Oh, man,
and
I
not,
have
like,
so many
actually
techniques
taking
for
3
that.
hours to read a paper.
I thought that might come up. If we had time, I was gonna actually go over this guide with you. So this is another library, so Brown University. This is a topic that comes up quite a bit. This is a great page. I would recommend this to you, and I was gonna go over this with you if we had time, which we didn't. Liveguides.brown.edu/evaluate/read. So how to read a scholarly article and how to understand what you're reading, Don't read the articles of the little book. In a nutshell, I barely even get into the full text when I'm searching. I spend a lot of time in the record fields. I read the abstract, I look at the keywords, I determine whether or not it's relevant. Does it fit my date range that I'm focusing in on? Does it seem to, at a glance, meet the criteria of what I'm looking at? Yes? Okay, let me read the full text. Then I get to the full text, and honestly, unless I'm designing a research study, I just skip over the methodology. I don't even read. It's like the recipe of how to make something. I don't care about that. I read the intro of like, what's the big problem? Why did the researchers feel the need to embark on this research study? It kind of opens up the field. It's a little easier to understand because it sets up the field and it's very broad. They go into usually a research question towards the bottom of the introduction, and then towards the end in the conclusion, they answer that question. All the stuff in the middle is just them proving, how they answer that question. If that paper at that point checks out too, and it looks good, the intro and the conclusion, so the question and answer, that's when I go into the methodology. Like, oh, this study of groundbreaking research, we found the answer to our question, and then, okay, great, let me look at the methods. Okay, you had 3 subject participants. 2 of them died, so now you only have 1, and then that was 100% success. So that would be something I would question. So that's kind of how I would read an article. They're not meant for you to read them like a book. That's why all the headings in the article, introduction, methods, analysis, discussion, conclusion are so important because it's meant to be skimmed. Okay, so this actually goes into a little bit of it more, reading a scholarly article. And I think that the library itself, as well as doing a workshop for how to read a scholarly article in the various disciplines. So if I get that information and it's open to everyone, I'm not sure if it's a specific, another summer internship program, but I know they were looking for volunteers to help moderate that because they were looking at something like 150 people. I'll forward that information on, but this is also really good and it should give you a good understanding of how to read it quickly. Again, don't get bogged down in the methods. Nobody understands that. That's just literally like only if you were going to design the study or if you were going to evaluate how good of a study it was. That's when I would mess around with the methods. Anything else? Anything else that you hoped I would cover that I did not cover? Any parting gifts I could give to you before I leave? All right, then we get to my favorite part. What's one thing that you enjoyed learning? Something you're like, this was cool, I'm gonna use this. This has like changed my life forever. I'm now gonna be a librarian when I grow up.
I think just learning about all the different databases, because at my home campus, all we use is like EBSCOhost and JSTOR, and that's it. Like we don't really branch out to like medical databases.
EBSCO and ProQuest are good multidisciplinary databases. So it's a good bang for your buck if you're doing some very surface level searching. And they, like, if you were getting into medical, CINAHL also operates off of Medline. So if you have access to that, you can use that, or PubMed is free. So, but yeah, good. The different data, it's crazy. We have so many databases. So if you go to the library while you're here, make use of this like Carnegie level institution, read R1 institution to see what we have and what we subscribe to, and play around with some of these things. As you guys are here, know that any public institution, so San Diego State, CSU, because we're publicly funded, we have to provide public access terminals for the public to come in and use. So if you ever need to access any of those databases and you're around campus and you can, bring your thumb drives, go to those public access terminals, download all day long, have a librarian help you. We will do that even if you're not a student or a faculty member here, because we're a public institution. So USD is not required to do that. Point Loma Nazarene also not required because they're private institutions. But the UCs, the CSUs will, and so you always have access to that. Okay, well, about 6 minutes at time. If you guys don't have anything else, I'm gonna close so we can move on with the rest of your lives. Thank you so much for being a good class. On the library guide, there is a way to get a hold of me, okay? If you need help with anything, or you need to run some searches, or you're like, shoot, you showed us this thing, how did we get to it again? Let me know, okay? Email me, happy to connect with you. And you too with the questions, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck, you guys, and enjoy your summer program.